are stories that connect us to ourselves and each other. These stories reveal who we are and show us the many vivid, wild colors of our truth. Welcome to Soul Wanderings, where we raise spiritual awareness and foster connections through these shared stories and personal experiences. And now, exclusively on KGRA Radio, I give you your host for Soul Wanderings Radio. Here's AJ.
Hello, happy day, friends. It is time for some soul wandering, the opportunity to hear journey stories, experiences from all kinds of people, all walks of life, who show up to share authentic pieces of themselves with all of us. And I am AJ Rasmussen, your host. Thank you for being here with us this evening. Soul Wanderings is a cozy little get-together where we meet so many incredible humans that show up to share their gifts, their journey stories with us. We get to talk about life, spirituality, authentic experiences, paranormal, the metaphysical, all the good stuff. We receive inspiration and motivation. Just have a really delightful time together. And tonight is going to be no exception. I am feeling a little giddy. I've made that post all through the week, how excited I am. I'm not going to lie. My guest tonight and I have very similar experiences from what I know about her this far. And we speak the same language. We are like the foundation of love language. And our guest has healed her body from chronic illness and trauma and now has created a life of health. Her journey into wellness took her down a spiritual path. No surprise, because when you're digging that deep, we all know where that path can take us. After being introduced to the Akashic Records, she felt a strong call to learn to read them, and trusting her intuition, she did just that and continued down her spiritual path, and now empowers, encourages, and inspires others to do better for themselves, which we will have the opportunity to learn all about this evening. Let's welcome to the show our guest, Kirby Budz. Hello, Kirby.
How are you?
So fantastic. I am delighted to have you here tonight.
I am so grateful for being here, and I'm just ecstatic that you have me here as well, and that you are interested in my story. And I'm really excited to share my story because it's something that is so powerful that I feel now, but during the journey of it, it didn't feel powerful. But as we know, just the process of life, that's exactly what it is. It's not some straight soaring line that gets you to the top. It's the ups and downs, the ins and outs that really shape us and bring us back to who we are. And I think that's why I'm so grateful for everything that I've been through.
Isn't it neat on the flip side of what we've gone through when it's like, in the moment, we don't think we're going to make it through. But when we get to the other side, we look back and we're like, oh my gosh, I'm a badass. I've got this.
100%.
Really good. Yeah.
I only ever dreamed to be where I'm at now. I used to sit when I was so chronically ill and just depressed and everything. I used to just sit and just be like, all I want to feel is happiness inside. I just do not want to have this ridding my body anymore. And I used to just pray for the feeling that I have at this point in my life now. And if anything, if anybody gets anything out of this, I just want them to know if you're in a place of hardship, it is 100% possible to come out of it, even though you probably don't feel like it is, because I doubted it forever that it was possible.
Right. Well, you believe what you believe from knowing what you believe, right?
Yeah.
And until you change your beliefs, which we can talk about later, but until you change that, you're really going to stay stuck in the same thought patterns.
Yeah, absolutely.
That. So that's a great way to start out the show. You obviously have several experiences in different aspects, all different ways, physically, mentally, emotionally, traumatically, spiritually, all of the things. So why don't we start with you? Why don't you give us a little bit of a story about who you are and where you've come from and what's your life been like that has led you to the now?
Absolutely. I would love to. So I grew up in a suburb of Chicago, and I have a large family. I have 5 siblings. We're all from the same parents, and we're all within 10 years of each other. So we're very close in age. We grew up really interacting in each other's lives, involved. Everything was around family. And I didn't come from a wealthy family. My mom didn't work. My dad worked, but my mom had 6 kids, so she couldn't afford to send all of us to daycare and work. She had a nursing degree and she could work, but it just wasn't possible for our family. My parents had a lot of kids, very quickly, and we didn't have a lot of money. But I didn't really notice that we didn't have a lot of money until I was about 10 years old, because that's when you kind of start paying attention a little bit more. And I just got tired of wearing hand-me-downs. I have 2 older sisters, and I was the third girl. And so I wore hand-me-downs until I was 10, which is why I started babysitting when I was 11, because I was so tired of wearing my sister's clothes. But I think that people always assume I carry myself in a certain way. And so many people assume that I came from a wealthy family, and that's just not the case at all. Everything that I've ever had in my life, I've had to work for myself. But my parents did sacrifice a lot. We didn't grow up. We only had 1 TV in our house. I shared a room with 2 sisters. We were all just heavily involved in each other's lives, and we had family dinner every night. And my mom cooked dinner because we couldn't afford to go out to eat or to buy fast food. My mom was very frugal, and they sacrificed so that we could have things, so we could experience things, so that we could try new things in our lives. So I was involved in, trying different stuff all the time, soccer or ballet or softball and piano or playing the flute, Girl Scouts. There was so many things going on all the time, but my parents really put their money into those things to help me and my siblings try out new stuff, to see what we wanted to be doing in our lives. And I'm honestly very grateful for that, because it teaches you a lot. It really does. And at all the different events, we would go and support our siblings. Like if somebody had a soccer game, like the whole family was there and we were cheering them on. We were this big thing in our town because we had such a big family. We didn't know anyone else who had a huge family. We all look alike. We're very fair skinned, covered in freckles, light eyes, and we all look like identical. If you see a picture with me and my siblings, it's so funny. People are like, most families, everyone doesn't look so much alike, but you guys all look like twins, and we kind of all do. And like I said, I started working pretty quickly. I babysat, and then I became a lifeguard. And that was like my first real job at a indoor water park. I'm not like medical or anything that's like that type of stuff has never been really like how I am. I'm totally super creative. I've always been really creative. I'm definitely the most creative in my family. But being a lifeguard, I did it just for the job. But crazy story, I actually ended up performing CPR on a 2-year-old little boy when I was 16 because he went unconscious at the pool. And that was something that was really traumatizing for me.
Definitely at that age.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared for that. I signed up to have this job because I wanted to make money, but I didn't really yes, that people's hands or their lives are in your hands, but you're not really thinking that you're ever actually going to do that. And I never in my wildest dreams thought that I could do that. Luckily, he was only unconscious for like 2.5 minutes, but it was the longest 2.5 minutes of my life. I will never forget it, honestly. And then I went on to continue to, work at other places after the fact of that. I started sewing when I was 11 years old, which was kind of a big thing because sewing is not a very common skill to have. But I learned actually in my first year in middle school in 6th or 7th grade, we had to do 6 weeks of different, home stuff. We took a cooking course, and we took shop, and we took painting and all this stuff. And sewing was one of those. And when I took sewing, I absolutely fell in love. And for some reason, I was such a natural at this, from the get-go. I didn't have any issues the way other kids did. And I was so comfortable at a sewing machine, and it was really bizarre. But I never really wanted to talk about it with people because kids are so mean. And anytime you do anything that's outside of like the norm, people make fun of you. I already got made fun of a lot growing up because my name is Kirby. And back then it was not common to have a weird name. You know, now it's super normal for people to name their kids different names. But for me then, like my 2 older sisters' names are Ashley and Kelly. It was like so normal. And then I'm like smack center in the middle of my family with this nutty name. No one else has a weird name like that. I totally love my name now, but up until I was about 16 years old, I wanted to change my name to Katie because I just got made fun of so much that I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. I couldn't take it. And I could probably get into this a little bit later when we get into the spiritual aspect, but I basically shamed myself. I had so much shame around my name. It actually took me until I was 30 years old to accept my name and start actually using my name in public. Anytime up until I was 30, like anytime I would order like a Starbucks drink, or if I put my name down at a restaurant or something, I never used my name. I would use like a pseudo name. And it took me going through like my healing process to realize that I had so much guilt and shame just around even my name, which was this shame that I had of who I am as a person. But that's a whole nother thing that we can get into later. So yeah, no, my name was definitely something that was tough for me. I can't remember exactly where I was going with that, but I was talking about high school or something like that. Kids being mean, this and that. It was sewing. So I never really spoke about it, but then I joined sewing club. This is so bizarre and random that this was even a thing that was at my public high school. I went to public school, or this was my public middle school at the time. And my sewing teacher's name, her name was Mrs. Rugg, she was totally, I mean, no pun intended, but she just loved what she did. And there was a group of us who just really liked sewing, and she just took us under her wing and we just learned. And I never spoke about it with anybody. Again, this shame of like not being able to be who I am and be accepted who I am, because I had already been shamed so much in my whole life. And so I really hid a lot of that, but I really loved sewing. And then it was awful because the second year I was sewing after sewing club and I was in these classes, I was making all these clothes and I was loving it. And my first year sewing, that teacher, she taught us how to make Civil War gowns and like parasails and these bags. Like it was wild, the things that she taught us. But if you were excited and passionate, she just allowed you to flourish. And that was probably the first time that I had somebody who really just allowed me to thrive in something that was different and just took me under her wing. And because I grew up in a large family, I don't want to say that we didn't get attention, but I mean, there's 6 kids, there's a lot going on. And I do feel like a lot of times I fell to the wayside because I'm pretty sensitive and I have 2 older sisters and I was always like kind of underneath them. And then the first boy was born after me. So a lot of tension went to that because there was 3 girls and then 1 boy. And so I always was just kind of lost in the mix. So then in the aspect of sewing, I finally felt like I have this thing, but then it got to be where they wanted us to, do fashion shows at the end of the year to show all the stuff that you made. And then I had so much shame around it that I did not even want to take part in it. I almost like wanted to stop going to school as a result of it. But I continued sewing through high school. And again, I never really spoke about it with people. I had no friends in my sewing classes, but that was something that made me so happy and excited inside. So I continued sewing and I was pretty amazing at it. I still love it to this day. But as a result of how it shifted in my life, for a good moment, it made me actually hate it. So I continued through sewing. I received a lot of awards and things in regards to that. I decided to go to college for fashion design as a result of my love for sewing, because I was just, I had watched so many people in my life. Like my dad hated his job his whole life and complained and complained and complained. And I was just like, man, if I'm doing something that I love, then I'm never going to hate my life or hate my job or hate what I'm doing.
Right.
But I also subconsciously had this thing in the back of my mind where I was like, I want to prove, like, I'm going to prove to everybody that I'm amazing and I can do all these great things, and no one will make fun of me then, and no one will have anything to say. And there was a big ego part of it within there. I loved this craft and I still love the craft, But the ego aspect of like fashion design, it was like, you know, your eyes light up and it's like, whoa, you know, and it's like, I felt like I had to prove something. I needed to show who I was and that I could be this big, great thing or whatever. So a lot of it was ego led, but I decided to go to school for fashion design. I wanted to move to New York City. Like ever since I was 16, I wanted to move to New York City. I knew that if I was going to go for fashion design, if I was going to be a fashion designer, New York City was the place that it was going to be. I was not going, like Chicago is not like a fashion place. I had no draw towards LA whatsoever. It was like New York, New York, New York. And that was a big thing.
Sense. Yeah.
What?
It makes sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that was a big thing because no one in my family had ever left where we lived. No one had ever left. And it wasn't even really an option. We knew that if we were going to go to college, we paid for college ourselves. I paid for my college myself. You know, like we knew that if we were going to, whatever we were going to do, like it was on us. You know, like I said, I didn't come from a wealthy family. And so if we went to college, it was known we have to go to college in state because we need to get in-state tuition. So ultimately, I didn't go to New York right away because my family life got pretty bad during my high school years. And my father started cheating on my mom. The whole thing, like my whole family life blew up, which was really difficult for me and my siblings because we were kind of like the Brady Bunch. We had a huge family. We always had this like really safe place for other people who had family issues. They would come and stay with us. We always had people over where we were like providing a safe place for them. They could have dinner there. Like we had an open door policy all the time for like helping people all the time. And it was pretty shocking. And then, like I said, we had family dinner every night. We did everything together as a family. So when all of this kind of happened and transpired and, you know, things started going haywire, I kind of stepped in my high school years to really step in and help my mom because so much stuff was going wrong. And I had two older sisters who were like away at college and I was like, you know, the only older one and I had three younger siblings. So I like felt this protection of needing to protect them and all of this stuff. And so I found out, I mean, it was pretty bad, like my junior and senior year in high school, but I found out 1 week after I graduated high school that my parents were officially getting a divorce. And even though this was something that I wanted for my mom because I felt so bad for her and I had tried to do so much to help her, it still was really traumatizing and really difficult to deal with just because, I mean, it's your family and, you know.
And devastating, the aftermath, the repercussions.
Yeah.
Everybody. Absolutely. I could see why you would feel that way.
Yeah, 100%. And so there was just a lot of abuse involved. My father's a pretty narcissistic, mental and emotional abusive person. So there's a lot of other things that I had experienced throughout my childhood that I kind of dismissed. He really, I know this now, but at the time and when you're younger, you don't really understand this, but he projected all of his insecurities onto me and my siblings, specifically the women in our family. He would make my mom stand on the scale in front of him, and there was just so much body shame, and all of our worth was wrapped around like how we looked. And, you know, me and my sisters, he made us feel like we have to be skinny, we have to wear makeup, we have to have our hair a certain way, like you need to present yourself, you need to like look this type of way, and like that determined your worth, that determined what you could have in life, like that just was everything. And it caused a lot of issues for me and my sisters just because it's a lot to handle. And there was also kind of this sexism within our household where like us women would do a lot of the things, but like my brothers were treated differently and they didn't have to, you know, clean the house or do the stuff like the woman, quote unquote, the womanly things. Right. And so there was all this other underlying stuff. And he really had instilled a lot of fear into all of me and my siblings just because of his own issues. But for anyone who doesn't know me, I am such a loud, stubborn, really strong, independent, bad ASS woman where I just do not take anything from anybody, to be honest. So I was the only person who would stand up to him, and and he just could not take it. And I think it also was even salt in the wound because I was a woman and I was just so would not take his crap. I would not. So he and I butted heads a lot because I just wouldn't surrender, and everyone else in my family surrendered, and I just would not do it. And as I kind of stood up in the process of like defending my mom and all those things, when I graduated high school, I decided not to go to New York. I decided to go to design school and commute so that I could stay home and help my mom, because it was very toxic and bad. It wasn't safe, and I didn't want to leave her in this moment of vulnerability. I'm such a protective mama bear. That's like who I am as a person. And I took on this protector role in my family. Nobody asked me to do that, but I felt that I had to do that. And I had 3 younger siblings, and I wanted to protect them. That's how I felt. And so they ended up, the divorce process was awful, but I ended up going to school for 2 years, commuting, going to design school. I put all of my energy into design school. That was the only outlet that I had. I was like, had 4.0. I did amazing, but I was so like stagnant. And I just like the entire time, all I wanted to do was to move to New York City. And I was better than everybody at my design school. And I'm not saying that because I have a big head. I'm such a humble like person, but I had already had so many years of sewing and design and all of this stuff under my belt. So when I went into design school, all of the basic stuff, it was so easy for me. So it was easier for me to excel in that aspect. Plus, I needed school as my outlet, and that is where I put all of my energy, and I needed that. And nothing like school never came easy for me. My one older sister, she is so naturally smart. In high school, she never had to study, and she would just excel so easily. And for me, I had to work really, really hard to get good grades because I just was not naturally smart like that. And so that same type of work ethic put into college kind of paid off for me, because I knew that I had to work hard to get good grades. And so that same, like I said, I did really well there. But it was about 1.5 years into going to design school there. And finally, it was probably like a 2-year divorce process for my parents. And ultimately, like as that was winding down, and I had wanted to go to a 4-year, I always wanted to get my bachelor's degree, just because I always felt that like if I got my college degree, it was never forced upon us that we had to go to college. My parents were always like, you know, you can do good things, and it's an option. You can, like, college is a great option for you, blah, blah, blah. You make your choices. But I just had so much value in that I wanted a bachelor's degree, because I felt like it was a big part of my worth. Again, this worth, this shame of who I am was a big thing that I know now, but I didn't know all of that then. And
this
so
is alive and well. Yes.
Yeah. Ultimately, I decided to leave that school and just graduate with my associate's degree, because once my parents' divorce kind of wrapped up after 2 years, I was like, peace out. I got to go. I'm done. I've done everything. I've sacrificed. This has been awful. I got to get out of here. So I applied for unpaid internships in New York City. And I applied for probably 100 unpaid internships, and I got called back from like 2 of them. They both offered me an unpaid internship. Of course, why wouldn't they? I mean, you're going to work for free for like umpteen amount of hours. Right. And I literally packed up my car and I drove to New York City by myself for an unpaid internship, and just had my associate's degree, and was like, I'm making my dreams happen. I'm going to, like, it's my time to shine. All of this is happening, and I'm not going to let anything hold me back. So that is how it plopped me into New York City, which then put me, I lived there for 10 years. It put me on this 10-year journey of me forcing something so difficult because I just refused to believe that anything else was a possibility. And I ignored every intuitive feeling, every red flag, every single thing that was trying to deter me to a different way. I was like not having any part of it. I was like, no, there's no way. I'm being a fashion designer. This is what the thing is. This is how I'm making it happen. Let's make this happen. So this was 2000.
So good at ignoring our intuition, aren't we?
Yeah, it was beautiful. I was like, wow, Kirby, God, if you would have just listened, your life would have been so much easier. I mean, it was
right.
silly.
But then without the lesson, like we were talking about earlier, where would we be? Yeah.
This was 2008. So we all know what happened in 2008. I moved to New York City 3 months before our stock market crashed. And to this day, I still believe that it was fate, because if I never would have moved then, I never would have probably moved at all there. Because
afterwards it would be a whole different experience, a whole different situation for you.
Yeah, and I can guarantee that once the stock market crashed, I probably would have like listened to my parents or anyone who would have been like, wait till it gets a little bit better and then you can move out there. But our stock market didn't get things didn't get better for a long, long time. So I know that I probably wouldn't have gone. So I just knew that it was fate that I went there then, but it's not like it made my process any easier, to be honest.
Right. We'll get into that some more because we're going to take a quick break. This is a perfect place for us to stop because you're going to get into a whole different realm of your experience, definitely the next 10 years after arriving to New York.
Yeah, sounds great.
Stay close, everyone. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go. Please listen. Now is not the time to fear. When your immune system is strong, shields up. You have very little worries. If your immune system is compromised, you're susceptible to all viruses. I say shields up and no fear. Try Heart Love from getthetea.com. Heart Love has a special ingredient called allicin. It comes from the healing part of the garlic plant. No garlic breath. No garlic leaking out your pores, just pure immune-building ingredients that gets your shields up. Heart Love is a unique blend of herbs that loves to build you up. Google garlic and know the benefits. One Heart Love pill is equal to 20 cloves of garlic. 20 cloves! Shields up. You've heard of our Life Change Cleansing Tea at getthetea.com. Now try Heart Love. And by the way, take your blood pressure and watch weekly what happens. So here's how to purchase. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com and build your shields. That's getthetea.com. Mention Ray in the coupon code and hit apply and receive free shipping.
Every 2 seconds, someone needs blood. Whether it's a natural disaster or one single child suffering from illness, the American Red Cross stands ready to supply blood when it's most needed. But blood is a perishable product. Therefore, it must continuously be replenished. You can safely donate blood every 56 days. The need is constant and patients are waiting. Call your American Red Cross at 1-800-GIVE-LIFE to schedule your life-saving appointment. Please give blood today. Patients are depending on you.
Telepath is a weekly digital newsletter filled with the latest paranormal news, trending topics, and fresh articles from some of the most popular critical thinkers in the community today. Stay informed on your favorite paranormal podcasts and live streaming talk shows. Interact with the Telepath and upload your paranormal story or pics. It could be featured in an upcoming edition. Sign up right now for the free Telepath newsletter at paranormal.radio. That's paranormal.radio.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRAradio.com.
Hello, welcome back to Soul Wanderings here on KGRAradio.com. We are hanging out with our guest tonight, Kirby Budz. And so far, Kirby, you've shared quite a bit of your journey story, but I know that is just like literally the tip of everything because your whole life is about to change now that you've arrived in New York.
100%. So I was 20 years old I wasn't even legal to drink. I moved there when I was 20.
So
I didn't care that was the part of where I was pretty connected. Like my intuition, I just was like gung ho, like you're telling me to do this, I'm doing it, you know? But the problem is that also, like I had said before, there was so much ego wrapped around it that it was so ego driven. But I moved there and I had a rude awakening pretty quickly because, you know, in all the movies and everything that you see, they make New York City look like rainbows and daisies and that it's, you know, so easy and everything. But it's like everything in New York City is awful. I mean, it's not awful, but it's so hard. I mean, it's 10 times harder than anything, you know, like getting an apartment. You need like $10,000 to get an apartment there. You need like first, last, security, a broker, you know, give them your first kidney and your firstborn child. It's literally so intense to get anything that's like normal and easy there. And so immediately, I mean, I jumped into a really difficult life really quickly because everybody who I knew who was 20 years old was away at college, partying, drinking, and I was in the real world. And then the stock market plummeted and it was such a awful time. I was so young. I was so naive. And I was seeing so many people who were out on the streets with like all their belongings because they couldn't afford their apartments anymore. And it was like such a sad, somber time to be there. But I was just so determined to like make it. And it kind of worked out a little bit in my favor where they were firing everybody from the fashion industry and they were hiring like freelancers or part-time people or whatever. And I was willing to work for literally nothing. So I would take all of these freelance jobs where they're like, we'll pay you $15 or $20 an hour, or this or that. And like, that was amazing to me. And my work ethic and just my determination and my perseverance was so hardcore that all of that kept coming forward. I would work, you know, like these unpaid internships, and then I would go and freelance for a few companies, and then I would go and do this for free and work at Fashion Week for free and just do all of this stuff. I just was like, I'm determined to make all this work. And ultimately, I was working for a lot of small companies, and I just felt like I really want to work for a big company. But it had been a couple years where it's like there was no end in sight with everything that was going on with the economy, and it was just so bad. And I decided, and every job interview I went on also, they asked me if I was a FIT or a Parsons graduate, and those are the two top design schools in the country. And I had applied to go to FIT when I lived in Illinois, but they denied me twice, which was a shot to my heart because I was like, no, I'm so good. How could you do this? And then I was like, okay, I'm feeling called. I really want to get my bachelor's degree. It was something that, like I said before, it had always been so important to me. But I just was like, okay, let me try one more time. I'm going to apply to FIT. And the reason why I chose FIT over Parsons is because I had to pay for my own college, and Parsons was a private school that was totally out of the question, something that was $50,000 a year. There was no way. And FIT was a public SUNY school. So I was like, okay, this is actually like an option for me. I'm willing to go into debt to make this happen. I want my bachelor's degree, but I can't, you know, like I need to have it be where it's also affordable. I have to pay for school. And so I applied one more time. And the thing is about FIT is that they accept 250 students each semester for fashion design, and they get about 5,000 to 10,000 applicants. It's so prestigious. There's so many people who want to come. There's also, it's in New York City. There's tons of international students. It's so many international students there, and it's very competitive. And so luckily, because I lived in New York at that point and I was now a New York resident, they have where if you're within, I think like 250 or 300 miles of the school, you can come in and interview in person. And as I'm sure you all can tell, I'm just so good at talking, and I have such a wild personality that I just sat down in front of them and they just couldn't help but let me in at that point because I just wasn't a person on paper anymore. They were seeing me in person, and I literally brought in like 15 or 20 garments that I had made and all my sketches. I mean, it was just the most intense thing ever. But I remember leaving that interview, and I was 22 years old, and I was like, you know what? I don't even care if they accept me. And this is when you know you're totally in surrender with the universe. Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't know this then, but I know this now. Right. But it's like when you don't even care what the outcome is, you just know that you showed up authentically who you are and gave everything that you had. And it's like, that was enough for me. I literally remember leaving there and being like, I don't even care if I get in. I was like, I know how good I am. And they gave me so many compliments when I was in there. I was like, I don't even care if I even get into the school. And then ultimately, yes, I got into the school.
Yay.
But yeah, it was a huge deal. And I was really, really excited. But then the heartbreak came because I had already a 2-year associate's degree that I had gotten before. And for anyone who doesn't know, just because you go to school for fashion design doesn't mean you don't also take all the other classes. You know, like I had to take like the English, the math, all of like the gen ed classes on top of all my design classes during my associate program. It's not like where you do 2 years of gen eds and then you go on to like what you're, you know, majoring in. For me, it was like all combined simultaneous. But the school that I had went to was only, I think it was regionally accredited. It wasn't nationally accredited. And like FIT was a nationally accredited school. So they would not accept my associate design degree, which was heartbreaking for me because I had already paid and gone to school for 2 years. And they basically told me it was worthless. And that like broke my heart. And I remember being presented with 2 options. And I was like, just everything that was going on. And I had been working and freelancing at this one company. And I was like, you know, it looks like I'm taking 2 steps back, but I'm also ultimately going to be taking 10 steps forward. So I'm going to sacrifice. So I decided to go back to school for 4 years and redo my associate's degree while simultaneously continuing to work, freelance, and do all of this stuff within the industry. Like I didn't skip a beat. I completely like put everything above my physical self and was like, I'm going to make this happen. So you guys are going to all die when you hear this. I took 9 classes every semester because I was so determined. I had to pay for college myself too. And the way that FIT works is you don't pay per credit hour. You pay per like semester, the same amount or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but so I took 9 classes every semester. I worked, I freelanced, I also interned at places. I took on different design things all the time. I only slept like a few hours every single night. I ran myself ragged. I was totally like engulfed in this industry, just completely just spreading myself so thin because I was just so determined. And I was involved with like all this stuff at FIT, all of these, I was like president of the fashion design club and just involved in everything. I was just so
goodness, girl.
Yeah, I lived off of coffee. I ate nonsense, and I was just totally burning the candle at both ends. And everybody who I knew was like, I don't even know how you do this. And on top of that, I was in a very abusive relationship where I was continuing to receive that narcissistic behavior, basically what I had experienced from my father growing up, as well as just continuous toxic relationships that were always like weaving in and out of my life. Again, these were things that were being attracted in without me even realizing that that's what was happening. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, by the time that I was 25, my health had become so bad. I actually had started experiencing anxiety when I was 21. But I thought that this was because I moved to New York City by myself. I'm living in this wild city during this wild time. And life was hard. I mean, I will not lie. Life was so hard. I was always stressed out about money or paying my rent or taking care of myself or if I was safe. There was so much unknown all the time. So I thought that that's why I had anxiety. But at 21, I didn't even know that what I was experiencing was anxiety because I didn't grow up in a family where we spoke about mental health. I didn't know what anxiety was. And when I say that now, I feel like I was so ignorant at the time, but it just was, I had no idea I literally had no idea. So ultimately at 25, when I finally, I had a huge, I mean, I don't know exactly. I wish I could go back and look. I should go back and look and see what was going on in the universe, if it was like an eclipse season or something that happened. But
that's always an interesting find.
Yeah, I think I kind of want to go back to see like how the timeline plays out. But Hurricane Sandy hit New York City in October. And this was when I was 25. And that completely changed my life. The first floor of my building flooded and we didn't have power for weeks. And there was so much like through all of this, I told you all of the crazy nonsense. The one thing that I had in my life was my safe home. Like I needed to have that safety feeling, that protection. And that when that got taken away from me, when Hurricane Sandy hit, I mean, I will never wish upon anybody a natural disaster, because it's traumatizing and terrorizing. And for me, I was still in that abusive relationship. My ex-boyfriend, I mean, now I'll call him that, he lived in Long Island. Like, he literally had no care about my well-being at all. I was trapped in New York City. We had no power. I had no contact. I had no family out there. You know, it just was a really scary time. And then simultaneous with that, there was bombs that went off in my family with things with my dad. And then right after that, I found out that this guy had been cheating on me. So it's like all of these bombs went off in my life at one moment. And the anxiety that I had already been experiencing for 5 years shot through the roof. My mental health took a turn for the worse, because I also then at that moment got mold poisoning, which I didn't know this then, but I know it now just because of all the sitting water that there had been in my building, and it had gone up like through the pipes, and then you breathe it in. And if you have like, there's people who are more prone to getting mold exposure if you have certain gene mutations and things. Like, I think there's something like 30% of people can be more susceptible to it than other people. And especially in New York City, the buildings are really old, and the pipes and all these things, like 40% of the buildings in New York City have mold on their own. And if you guys don't know the effects of black mold, but it's so toxic and horrible for you. But I didn't even know at the time that I had got this. But what happened is that my mental health took a turn for the worst at that point at 25 years old. And I went into a severe, deep depression as a result of all of this stuff happening in my life, all of the years of running myself ragged, all of the years of the anxiety that I had been carrying for so long. And this completely took away. This is when I started noticing like that I wasn't behaving like how I am now. I had no voice. I had no energy. I had no, like, my fatigue was so bad. The depression was so bad. And I went to therapy for 3 years to speak about a lot of the emotional things and, you know, the stuff from my dad growing up and all of that. But ultimately, they were just pumping me full of a lot of antidepressants and medicines. And I am very, very, very sensitive, very empathic. And I had never taken any type of prescription medications my whole life outside of birth control. And in New York, they just were like, oh, it's common. Everybody's on Xanax. Everyone's taking this. And I was like, well, I'm not everyone, and this isn't helping me. It's making me worse. And it gave me so many suicidal thoughts that was the scariest part for me. But I received all of the side effects of the medication, but the suicidal thoughts was probably the worst, because I would be doing things that would just be normal stuff. You know, I'd go into the subway and I'd be wait for the train and everything, and I'd be totally fine. And then these scary thoughts would come in where it would just be like, you should jump in front of that train. And I knew that it wasn't me thinking those thoughts, that it was coming from somewhere else. But it scared me so much that was even popping into my head, because I couldn't control it. I had no idea what was going on. That lack of control of your own body is a very, very scary thing.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I decided to get off of the medication, because I was on this, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, but I was on this awful hamster wheel of taking the medication, dreading my day to get through my day, and then at night drinking to numb the feeling, because I had so much anxiety. All I would want to do is just drink and eat pizza and lay in my bed and watch Netflix. And it's like my life that I had, this quote unquote dream life, was so traumatizing just to even live. And I didn't even want to be in my own body anymore. And there was nothing that I could do about it. And so I decided to stop taking the medication, and I started kind of switching like foods that I was eating, which started making a difference. And I know now that like your gut is your second brain. And I mean, I could have done a lot of other things to help that, but
made you decide to start changing your diet? Like,
yeah.
what was it? Why would you think of that, of all the things that would be something you would need to change?
Well, I didn't do it because of like the anxiety and depression. I did it because I had gained so much weight, and I was so uncomfortable in my own body, because I had just the medicine made me gain weight. I was super depressed, made me gain weight. I was eating and drinking like a fish, which made me gain weight, but I wasn't social. I was drinking bottles of wine in my bed, eating, you know, New York City pizza, and coping, just finding a way to cope with how I was feeling inside, because I was so like burdened with everything that was running in through my body. And at this point, like I had gotten a job working at Ralph Lauren. I'm working as a designer at Ralph Lauren, which this is like my ultimate dream. Okay. I'm working and everyone's looking at me like praising me for all these things. And I'm just flailing, completely flailing. So finally, when I just couldn't take that, I was so fat, like I'll be completely honest about it. I was so uncomfortable in my body. I was like, my sister had done this, like, it's awful now. I would never do it now, but she did this like diet thing and then this whole process. So within 30 days I totally like kind of went a little bit anorexic in that aspect and lost like 15 or 20 pounds. And then I started going to the gym where I like kind of started feeling like I had a little bit of control back in my life, where I had felt so out of control for such a long time. And the problem is that I had so much emotional abuse throughout my life. And then also there was still that ex-boyfriend who continued to dip his toes in my pond and continue to emotionally abuse me, which kept me again on this hamster wheel where it's like I couldn't gain control in my life. Whereas even though it's like it looked from the outside like everything was rainbows and daisies, it totally wasn't. So once I finally
caught up with you.
What?
It all caught up with you.
Exactly. And it was so much deeper because I still at this point didn't know that the mold was a problem, and I moved into another apartment, which actually had a 20-year leak that had the ceiling fall through. And the landlord, landlords in New York are just awful, to be honest, but they refused to fix the ceiling. And there was this huge leak and there was black mold everywhere. They wouldn't do anything about it. And one whiff of breathing in black mold is enough, because where does mold grow? It grows in a moist, warm, dark space. And what's inside your body? A moist, warm, dark space, where it's like, then I had black mold in my sinus cavity, growing in my brain, on my organs, and my whole body. Like my whole body was just like, mold spreads like wildfire. But I didn't know this at the time. I just knew that my health was continuing to plummet. Like, even though I started feeling better because I stopped the medication and I kind of started taking a handle on like that stuff, my mental health was still struggling. And I also started getting so many other co-infections and issues. I started getting like Bell's palsy on my face, and that's where like half your face droops to one side. And when that started happening, that really scared me, because you can't hide that. You know what I mean? Like, at least if I don't feel comfortable and I'm overweight, then fine. But like when my face is drooping to one side and my whole family and people are like, what's going on with your mouth? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what's happening. So ultimately, it wasn't until 2 years after that, I'm going to have to keep speeding forward because otherwise this can just go on forever. 2 years after that, where I started noticing that anytime I consumed certain foods, that I would have a reaction. I would have bloating and all of this stuff. Like, my body was physically reacting anytime I consumed anything. And the biggest thing was that my anxiety would skyrocket anytime I consumed dairy. So I cut out dairy because I was like, okay, if I don't have this, then it's going to help with my anxiety. And it did help. But then I started noticing, like, as I cut out other things, it helped as well. And then I realized that there was this other thing outside of Western medicine, that there was ways that you can help your body without taking prescription medications. And there's things that can help you with anxiety that are holistic. And I started learning about holistic living, which was something that was foreign to me because my mom was a nurse and I had other family who worked in Western medicine. And I didn't know that there was like an alternative to healing in that sense. So I started going and digging into that. And in that process, I also had still continued to have been working at Ralph Lauren. And it was such a mirror to all the other types of relationships that I had, where it was super toxic. It was super abusive. It was just running myself ragged again in this type of corporate environment. There's not enough that you can do. And I realized that this dream that I had made up in my head of what it was like to be a designer was not what it was at all. I loved sewing. That's why I wanted to be a designer. But being a designer, I hate to say this to anyone who wants to be one, it's not that. And it's like I got so fed up of having to argue with Chinese factories over the cost of buttons when, we're selling a $200 dress and they're like, get these buttons to 3 cents. And it's just like, I just realized how much it didn't align with who I am as a person, and that like giving and caring and comforting person. And also like within the aspect of working there, they had completely taken my voice away from me. I had no say in anything, to be honest. And I just, it didn't align with me. It just didn't align with who I was anymore. And I had to make a hard choice because my health was a priority and my career wasn't lighting me up anymore. And I had shame around letting it go, but ultimately I was going to have to, you know, in order to connect back with myself and ultimately heal. You know what I mean?
How many people can relate to this? I mean, different places, situations, and things, but how many of us have put ourselves in a situation where we thought this is it, this is our dream, and we're going to do everything we can, only to find out that, you know, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, and I'm not fulfilled in any way. It's just, I love that you shared so authentically this experience, because I know so many people can relate to this.
Exactly. And the thing is like, I thought that getting there, the happiness was just going to be there. You know, It's like, I've got it. I made it. I did it. I knew I was worthy at working at this huge company. I mean, Ralph Lauren's a multi-billion-dollar company. But again, I had put my worth in this outside thing because I had never felt that worth within myself. I needed something else to validate me. And I wasn't receiving that even from this job, because ultimately the job wasn't ever going to validate me anyways.
We do that until we know not to do that, which is part of your journey, which we get to talk about after this next break, which we'll be going commercial free the next hour, you guys, which is exciting because you have a lot to share, Kirby.
I have a lot to share.
I do have a question from the chat room though, before we get off topic and have to go to the break, but they were wondering what your favorite internship was.
Oh man.
You did quite a few.
I did a lot. I know. I didn't even touch on all the things because I can't even get into all of it. This is why I'm writing a book, because there's just so much. There was two. Okay. I really liked being an intern at Express. I will say that company, I interned there and I ultimately worked there for a little bit of time too. Express is actually a really great company. And I really, really love that company. So if you guys like shopping there, I do fully support them. There was another one though, which was a high-end company. I wouldn't want to ever work there now because I'm vegan, and they totally had all this like fur and leather everywhere. I can't even remember the name of it. I'll have to think of it, and I'll let you guys know what that one was right after the break.
Working with those type of companies that we grow up. So you were talking about how your dad was really strong on his conditioning, on the way you looked and what you wore and how you acted and things like that. And then you go and work for a fashion industry that does the same exact thing.
Yep.
That conditions humans of all kinds to look be a certain way.
Mm-hmm. It's so simultaneous. It's such a mirror.
I was just going to say, I can see why you went into it because of your love for creating and sewing and things like that. But what we experience, we usually are drawn to, whether that's good or bad, positive or negative, right?
Spot on, 100%.
Yeah. We have another question. With everything you were going through, what was your relief felt? Like, what was it, your work, or did you have any hobbies? Like, how did you...
If I'm being honest, at the time when it was the worst, I didn't have a relief outlet. And I think that's why I spiraled so hard, because it was so nonstop. And I did not stop. I didn't even sleep. And even if I wanted to sleep living in New York City, there wasn't a way for me to do it. You guys, New York City does not stop either. And you're in an industry where it's like somebody's always coming behind you to take your spot. I didn't have an outlet. I'm not going to lie. I didn't. And I've never been a big drinker. I never really went out. I wasn't like a clubber or like a bar person. I'm a huge lover. I am such a giver and a lover, which is why I've had these abusive relationships, because if I attract in the wrong person, I love so hard and they take advantage of me really bad. So that relationship that I had in the middle there, that was my outlet because I loved him so much. He used and abused me, but I gave everything to that man, and that it took me 6 years after that to even move past that because of how much I had given to him. But also he had been divorced and he had 2 kids. And so I loved his kids so much. That's why it's also hard when you date in a relationship like that when kids are involved too. So like his kids and him, that was my outlet. But also because he was a narcissist and not a good person, no matter what I did, I wasn't good enough. So it was another abusive area that was really manipulative of me without me even realizing that.
Which, as an empath, as you've expressed that you are, we're really good at attracting the narcissist to our life because we are so giving and open and you know, somewhat vulnerable. A lot of days where we can be easily taken advantage of. There's no doubt about that. But quite a story you've shared with us this first hour. We're going to take a break. It's top of the hour already, you guys. And when we get back, we're going to hear about the magic that occurred after these experiences that Kirby had. Because like she said in the beginning, you know, there is magic that happens after you go through the hell that you go through. There are beautiful things where you can look back and be very thankful for your experiences that you had been through. So stay close. We'll be right back.
Permanent industrial glue impossible to remove? Not anymore, because Handyman Formula by D-Bond is a patented chemical adhesive remover. It's used in the building and home maintenance industry, but now it's available for your home use, for your DIY projects. Unglue stickers, silicone rubber, labels, price tags, flex tape, weather stripping, carpet glue, wood glue, liquid nails, even 3M 5200. And it dissolves graffiti. Yeah, graffiti. Handyman Formula by D-Bond works, and it's safe to use on most surfaces. No need to call a professional. Don't get out the pliers and blowtorch. Just apply a little Handyman Formula by D-Bond and wait 90 seconds, then quickly and easily pull the items apart. Get unstuck. Visit dbondhandymanformula.com. That's dbondhandymanformula.com or call 561-575-4200. Handyman Formula by D-Bond.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with, you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
The Liberator Rocket Heater will heat your home for free. The highly efficient Liberator Rocket Heater has no moving parts. It's safe and strong, constructed of 1/4-inch steel. So like all things made in the USA, it's built to last. Uses any kind of wood, sticks, even scrap in its gravity-fed firebox. And it heats workshops, homes, garages, outbuildings, industrial areas, and barns. Watch the video of this blast furnace stove in action. Visit RocketHeater.com. That's RocketHeater.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store. More ways for you to make contact. Live Discord chat rooms, live talk radio, live video cast, toll-free HD phones, and coming this year, live streaming TV, giving you more ways to make contact. Your KGRARadio.com.
You can listen to Soul Wanderings on platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, Deezer. I mean, we're all over the place. But you're listening to Soul Wanderings here on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, Salt Lake City, Utah, and Hudson Valley, New York at the moment. You can also find us on Paranormal Radio. And don't forget, you can check out soulwanderings.com too. And while you're visiting the site, link to the social, give us a like, a little bit of love, some comments, reviews, shares, that sort of thing. I haven't really been big on that, but I guess it's a thing and I really need to be. So any type of support is appreciated. Thanks, guys. Now on with the show. Kirby, we just heard about your journey story in Cliff Notes, right? There's obviously so much more.
Yeah.
And because we're short on time, 2 hours is never long enough, as I always say. We want to get to the good stuff now. So you went through all of these crazy, incredible life experiences. You really got dealt some heavy cards.
Yeah.
But you chose a different life based on your experiences. I want to hear about that. Let's hear about that light that you came to. Like, what was your experience after you started really working on you and going down a spiritual path and that sort of thing?
So it was about, I was 29 and a half. That's when I decided I was going to leave the fashion industry. I was going to leave New York City. I didn't want my life to be there anymore. I came to, and at this point I still hadn't been diagnosed with chronic illness, but I was starting to kind of pay attention and listen and be like, what do I want? I was kind of starting to listen to myself a little bit more. So I left Ralph Lauren. I left New York City. I moved back to Chicago, and that
was after 10 years of.
That was It was right before my 30th birthday. So for anybody who's into astrology, all of this extra the stuff with my health, and then leaving my career. This was all around my Saturn return. So all of that happened there, which totally makes sense at this point in time. Because if you're in a path that you're on that isn't in alignment with you, your Saturn return is going to totally flip that. So that's what happened there too. So I went back to Chicago, and I ultimately thought that this big empty hole that I felt inside the entire time I lived in New York City, I always had this big hole that I was trying to fill, and if I would have just gone within, I would have been able to fill it very easily, but I was a silly little girl. But so I thought that I had this big empty hole, and the reason why I felt it is because I lived away from my family. And I always was really close with my family. Me and my siblings, we have each other's initials tattooed on us. We are very close, but I've always been that independent wanderer where it's I never felt the connection to Chicago. The only reason why I went back there is because I knew how sick I was. I didn't want to work at Ralph Lauren, and so I had to go back somewhere. I had to go somewhere. So I went back to Chicago. It took another year for me to get diagnosed with chronic illness. Ultimately, I started paying attention to synchronicities that were coming up in my life, and I put two and two together because my sister went to go buy a house, and it ended up being that house was full of mold. And then I was trying to explain to her why mold was so bad, and she was like, well, why is it so bad? And then I looked up all the symptoms, and I literally had every single symptom. I had 50 symptoms of this, and I was like, oh my God, I have mold. And so then ultimately I went to a holistic doctor because I had gone to Western doctors for so long. Nothing came out of it. And the first time I went to a holistic doctor, she was able to diagnose me with Lyme disease and mold poisoning on the spot based off of everything. So that was the two big things, was Lyme disease and mold poisoning, but there was about 30 other co-infections that went along with that. So at that point, when I finally got that diagnosis, I decided I had to go back to work. I also was so sick and fatigued and depressed. I could barely get out of bed. I could also barely walk. Okay. Because black mold eats at your joints, and it makes you my body was almost like an 80-year-old woman because it's taking over you on internal, and you don't know what's happening. So my whole body felt like it just needed to be cracked by a chiropractor all the time. I was so fatigued. I was so depressed. I couldn't get out of bed. It was so bad, but I had to go back to work because, again, even though I had moved back to Chicago, I didn't come from a wealthy family, and I had to pay for my own healing treatments. You know, I'm also 30 years old, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. So I went back to work at this design company in Chicago, and I started healing holistically and doing all of this holistic healing, which I actually documented on YouTube. And I've just recently started putting out all those old videos from last year because I had so much fear about putting them out, because I'm very, very vulnerable in them, where I'm crying and I'm talking about my depression and I'm really open. And that's very scary to put into the world, because our world is very mean. But I'm very grateful because I've received a lot of positive feedback. So I'm going to continue to put them out, as hard as they are for me to see them again. So I started healing holistically. And probably like the first 6 months, it was all wrapped around detoxification of the body, infrared sauna, ozone, you know, acupuncture and chiropractor and lymphatic drainages. And I ended up getting my root canals removed. It turned out that my root canals were causing all this poison and bacteria and parasites in my mouth, to then like filter to other areas in my body. And my gut was an absolute mess. And I started doing coffee enemas and parasite cleansing. And that is really what like started really helping up healing my speeding up my healing process. And then it was about 6 months of doing all of this holistic healing, which it did help. It did help. But there was still so much, right? So I ultimately, out of nowhere, and let's be honest, we all know nothing happens out of chance. Nothing comes out of nowhere. I started implementing. I also never played the victim. This is really important. I never played the victim to being sick. I never said I am sick. I always said I am healing. I am healing. I'm healing. I'm healing, because I knew the power of my mind and the power of those things. And I had just kind of stuck on that. I didn't want to be the victim in this situation. I didn't want it to define me. Mm-hmm. And even though so many people will be like, you can't heal from Lyme disease. I was like, no, I can. I'm healing. I didn't care what people said. So I started using gratitude and the connection with nature, which started making a big difference. So like every day I would go out and I would do grounding, putting my feet on the earth. And at this time I was living in Chicago, like in the suburbs of Chicago, and it would be 30 degrees out and I'd be outside standing on the front lawn, like connecting with nature. The connection with nature, which then started connecting me back with my intuition. Nature is so powerful.
So powerful.
It is so powerful. So it started connecting me back. And then I read the book, The Magic by Rhonda Byrne, and she has like daily steps of like bringing gratitude back into your life. So I started this very strong, positive gratitude practice. And I would do all of it while I was connecting with nature. And on the weekends, I would spend like 4 hours sitting with my feet on the earth. And in these moments of silence where there isn't all this chatter going on around you, it's like I started getting that connection back with myself. And I could physically feel like the energy and the electrons from the earth coming into my body. And I was just like, wow, this is so wild. And like my intuition started getting really strong then, but I still had no idea. I had no idea what was happening. So then again, the universe presents you with everything that you always need. All of a sudden, these things started showing up in my life, and then I started learning about breath work. So I decided, it was July of last year, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this breath work class. I don't know what this is, but everyone says it's really great, blah, 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 blah. I do this breath work class, and this is the first time that I was connected with spirit, and I was doing this breath work, and it was a virtual class. So I was like in a safe place at home, and it was, the woman was coaching, but it was the first time that I saw physical, like spiritual beings in the room with me. But I was paralyzed. I was not in my body. I couldn't, if you would have asked me to move my arms while I was doing this breath work, I would not have been able to move them. I was so paralyzed in this moment. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? And I was bawling, and my whole body was like convulsing. I was like, felt like it was kind of having an exorcism. It's like all of this energy was removing out of me, but they just kept saying like, you're safe, you're protected, we're helping you. Like we need to get this out of you. There had been so much negative energy that had been running through my body that it got me so sick, because I had been out of alignment for so long. I resisted for so long. Actually, breath work was the second kind of spiritual thing I did. The first thing I did was Reiki. I had a Reiki session done, and that was so powerful. And that was the first time that I saw a synchronistic number. After I finished the Reiki session, it was 444. And the man who did my Reiki, he was so powerful. And so that opened my eyes first. And that was like a few months before. And then I did this breath work. And then the best thing about this breath work class that I did was that she sent you a recording where you could do breath work on your own after that. And I kid you not, I started doing this breath work every single day. And it was awful. It was absolutely awful because I had flipped the switch from focusing on my physical healing to now focusing on mental and emotional. And every time I was doing this breath work, it was like peeling back another layer. It would pull up emotions from the deepest, darkest places, so much trauma from my father that had just been put on me for years and years and years. And I mean, I just want to let you all know, I don't have a relationship with my father. He's a very bad person. He's not a part of my family's life at all. He's a drug addict and a really toxic, abusive person. And I had to put those firm boundaries with him to move forward in my life. And I did that. It's been over 10 years that I've had a relationship with him, and I have peace. There is no anger or anything around it. I have very strong peace and forgiveness with this man, but I have made an active choice in my life to not have him in my life. But that doesn't mean that the bruises and the effects weren't done before. Were very, very deep within me. And through that process of breath work is when I really started pulling them up. So I did a lot of breath work.
It's very underestimated.
Yes, it was so powerful. I still, to this day, I do it almost daily. It's so powerful. It is so powerful. And the woman who I did it with, if anyone wants to use her name is Bree Melanson. It was amazing. I mean, I still, to this day, I rave about this woman. I actually am going to get certified in breath work because I believe in it so much. But then I started, attracting in other things. So that I started doing meditation, and then I'm doing daily meditations. I'm doing journaling, I'm doing the gratitude, I'm doing the grounding, I'm doing the breath work, and things on their own started shifting. And then it was eclipse season of last year where it just eclipsed out everything in my life. That job that I was working downtown I was working with a toxic woman again, and all these other things started just like literally shifting out of my life. And I was like, okay, what is going on? I'm like in the vortex right now. This was eclipse season last July. And then I started reading Joe Dispenza's books. And then I started going even deeper. I went to a shaman, and he started helping me purge and release more, and acupuncture and a lot of other things that were like really getting in there. And I started doing hypnosis, and that started helping me purge. It's like I couldn't get to the point of really having the spiritual, like connecting fully into my spirituality, because I'm telling you all, I had thousands of layers that I had to release of this emotional and mental trauma that had been basically running my life up until that point. And so ultimately, it was October of last year, I decided to do the medical medium 28-day.
Oh, so
detox.
good.
I did the 28-day raw detox in combination with a parasite cleanse, as well as like daily meditations and a lot of inner stuff. But through that process of that detox, my healing skyrocketed so much. My physical sickness went away so much, and my spirituality shot through the roof to the point where actually my physical body almost couldn't handle it, because I woke up so quickly. My spirituality shot through the roof so fast that my physical body had such a difficult time navigating all the energies of what was going on, because I also am an empath, and I'm very sensitive. I'm a water sign. I'm a Scorpio. So like when there's energetic shifts, I feel it through every bone in my body. So ultimately after that was the biggest shift, because it was November 11th, 11/11 of last year. This is when I received the strongest download. This is when I was fully in connection with my highest self and receiving the most downloads ever, where they were like, you have to leave Chicago now, get out of here. You're out of alignment. You need to walk in your purpose. And I had learned about the Akashic Records March of last year. And, I totally skipped this part. I'm sorry. I could go on about everything. But when I learned about the Akashic Records, I was driving in my car, and I had never heard of them before, but I was driving in my car, and my intuition screamed so loud at me. They were like, you're going to read the Akashic Records. And I kid you not, I literally said out loud, I was like, no. I'm not reading the Akashic Records. That can't be my thing. Like,
right. Explain what Akashic Records are really quick for those who are following along.
Yeah, 100%. So the Akashic Records are, the reason why I was so resistant is because they're, based off of what I had thought in my head, was like, they're too woo-woo, they're too spiritual. I can't be that, like I can't connect with that. But they're this metaphysical library, and vibrational history of every single thought, experience, emotion, interaction that every soul has ever experienced since the beginning of time, and what is to come as well. So this is infinite information for every single soul, and every single person has an Akashic record, and every single person can access their record, and it's because they're vibrational, and once you tap into that frequency that you can access that record. So as long as you are in alignment with it, you can read that. And I was like, there's no way. This can't be the thing for me. How can I do that? That's not I can't connect with this. There's no way in hell. Like, that's not the thing. And I was so resistant. And my intuition, it's so funny because anytime I connect with my guides now, they just laugh at me. They're like, you're such a silly girl. But they literally laughed at me then. And I was just like, no. Like, again, this was me trying to control my life. And that is what got me so sick in the first place, is because I refused to let go of control. I continued to shove a square peg in a round hole, and I just wasn't listening. So ultimately, when this came up in November, I was in full surrender mode because I couldn't deny my spirituality had just shot so high through the roof. My highest self and just everything was happening so simultaneously. So I kid you not, this came in on 11/11, that download. And also they told me then, they were like, you need to start a podcast, you're writing a book, you're doing all this stuff. And it was too much for me because I was still a little bit like, I'm sick and I don't know. And what, I can't do this, but whatever. So I totally surrendered. I listened.
Whatever.
Within 10 days, I literally left Chicago. I drove to Utah. My intuition told me to go to Utah. I then spent 2 weeks in Utah, in southern Utah, where I was in like a total, just almost like healing phase in myself. I spent so much time out in nature in Utah in that moment. I didn't spend any of the holidays with my family. I didn't come back to Chicago. I haven't gone back to Chicago since I left, and I've only trusted my intuition for where to go. I ended up going to Boston to visit a friend, and then I spent all of January in Portland. In Portland is when I connected with my guardian angels and my two spirit guides. Their names are Nathaniel and Anne Marie. They came to me while I was connected in Portland. They told me that they brought me there because I also was I stayed at this Airbnb, and they had this like very spiritual backyard. There was so much history there. And like, I went there because it was also a part of me connecting deeper with myself. And in January is when they were screaming like, okay, you should read the records, this and that. But again, I was trying to control my life. And so I was like, no, I don't know. I'm not doing that. So ultimately, I went to Bali in February, this past February, because my intuition told me to go. And it was so funny because the second that I landed in Bali, they were like, are you going to listen to us now or not? Because we literally have brought you so far away from everything that you could ever think is trying to go on in your life. Will you listen now? Like, listen to what we have to say. And so ultimately, I mean, you can't deny Bali. If any of you don't know, Bali on its own is an energetic vortex. There are these ley lines, these energetic ley lines that go over the earth, and where they cross are these energetic vortexes. And Bali is one of those places. So just being in Bali, and they say that Bali is the blood, like Earth's purification center. Earth's blood purification center is Bali. So I'm there after having just healed from chronic illness. And I'm also like, my spirituality is like sky high. And I'm just totally like in this total spiritual bubble. I actually left and went to this small island outside of Bali where they don't even have cars. There's only like 1,000 people on this island. It's called Gili T. It's actually more of like kind of known as like a party type of island. But when I was there in February, it was like their low season. There was no one around. It took you 1 hour to walk from one side of the island to the other. I spent all my time sitting on the beach, laying in the Indian Ocean. Like, the Indian Ocean was so cleansing and healing to me. It literally was like all of my guides healing me even further. I did plant medicine while I was there, which helped me get to even deeper levels of healing generational trauma that I had learned, past life trauma, more trauma with Tom. Tom is my dad. I don't call him dad. He's Tom. So I did more healing from him. And it was like this entire month. I was there for 30 days and I was in this whole bubble. I was completely removed from the world. And ultimately, a week or 2 weeks into when I was there, my guides told me, I'll never forget it. They were like, so when are you going to open the records? Because we already told you what you're supposed to be doing, but you just haven't done it yet. Like, you're going to do it, or what are you going to do? So then I started reading the records for myself, and it was so beautiful and angelic. And this allowed me to get that extra deeper layer of knowing myself, like that I never even knew was possible, because it was that connection with my soul. And this helped me heal even faster. And then I started reading for a couple of friends, which I was bringing them a lot of clarity in their lives. And I was just like, wow, this is angelic. And so I always, as I kind of had explained before, I've always been this very giving, this very loving, this very protective person. And so when I started reading the records, I realized I was providing that same type of feeling for other people. And that hole that I had always felt within me, it just started closing up, and it started finally like going away. And as I was shedding and healing, well, I was also providing all this healing and knowledge to others. It came full circle. So then ultimately, when I came back to the United States, my guides told me to go and move to Austin because that's where my soulmate is. And I was like, okay, cool, no problem. Great. But then, coronavirus kind of smacked us across the head. And so I was in Austin, and then I was planning on continuing to stay down there. But then when they shut down like South by Southwest and, like the NBA, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, what's happening right now? So I came to Denver to stay with my sister because she was like, I really don't want you to be alone. I don't know what's going on in our world, and I just don't want you to be alone right now. So I've been in Denver since then. But through all of this, I immediately, once I got back into Denver, I opened my Akashic record reading business, which from the get-go just completely skyrocketed. It also was just almost perfect with what's going on in the world because I've been able to provide so much healing and clarity for other people. There was such a beautiful message that came through during a reading that I did for myself, which was, if we don't go within, we will go without. And the reason why we're being pushed and forced right now to go into our homes is mirroring that we all need to be going within ourselves to connect deeper with ourselves, to be our best, to provide. And if we don't do that, we will go without. You will continue to go without. So through the process of just me, I didn't even have a clientele. I don't even know how it happened. I listened to my guides, I opened the business, and everything just shot through the roof. And then all of my guides that I put on my site, where I've been providing guidance for people to kind of take their own power if they're not doing a reading, everybody's just like, there's so much healing that's happening in the process. And then I also opened up where I have created organic candles and bath salts to provide extra healing and comfort in your life. And there's just so much. So like everything in the last, like COVID, I don't want to say this, I don't want to be insensitive to anybody, because I'm, everything that's going on in the world, I'm so hyper aware of all of it. But this COVID experience where I have just been forced to focus only on myself, I have spent 90% of this time in silence, not speaking with other people, which is funny because you guys have not heard me shut up this entire time. Whereas if you follow me on TikTok, which is exactly where AJ and I connected, I don't shut up on there either, but it's because I'm completely blocked out from listening to any outside distraction that would force me to question myself. It has forced me to only just be myself and use who I am to help the world. And that's exactly what I'm doing, which has brought this deeper, beautiful connection with myself. And so I am the happiest I've ever been now. I've never been more connected with my highest self. I've never been more connected with my intuition. I've never felt like I've been providing more or greater information to the collective. And I know that I'm walking in purpose and alignment because I am providing so much help and healing to other people. And that is literally what lights a fire in me.
Yes. Isn't that the best? I love helping other people. It's like a high. It's like
it's a high. I can't help it. I'm like drugged in the moments of it. I'm just like, I want to give more to you. I also, it's like I've had to get over the fact of like the money aspect. I also had done in the process of a lot of this, of healing a lot of my own money insecurities, but I am so in service to God and our world. And through this process of helping others heal, it's just been the most healing for myself, which is even more wild because it's such a mirror. And all of that, I went through it quickly because we don't have all the time in the world, but all of that shame and that unworthiness and that lack and that fear and all of that I had experienced through my 20s, through my teens, everything. Every single layer that I shed through all of my internal healing, I don't have any of that anymore. I have no shame in who I am anymore. I have not even 1 ounce of feeling unworthy for anything that I want in my life anymore. I am so at peace with myself. And it's through the time that I spent in silence where I just connected back to who I am and listened to who I am and listened to my guides and listened to spirit and connecting with Akashic Records. It's like all of that, nothing else matters. I'm so untouchable with my peace that like nothing even can get into my bubble anymore. And I'm so grateful for that.
You came back home to your spiritual self.
100%. And I'm sad that it took me so long because my life would have been so much better before, but I also wouldn't be able to help so many people with my story so that they can know that no matter what they've been through, they can get through it to get to this point as well.
I can relate to that. I have lived quite a life, a lot of really icky situations, trauma, abuse, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I'm now in my 40s and I sit and think about where I'm at and how beautiful life is and what I wouldn't have given to have more years of this.
Yeah.
But then it also turns me into a place of so much gratitude for having had those experiences because it did lead me to this moment where
Yes.
everything does feel this amazing. And I really truly believe that you do have to go through what you contracted yourself to go
Yes.
through so that you can get to this place where it is really beautiful. And not that everything is like rainbows and butterflies. We've talked about this so many times on the show because life still happens all around us.
Yeah.
But when we work on the inside part of us, it's how we view it and how we react to it or choose not to react to it that really alters our reality.
100%. And I had a moment, even through a lot of my healing, I had this one moment when I was in Bali and I got so angry with like my guides and my highest self. And I was like, why me? Why did you have to choose me to have things be so hard and so difficult? Why did I have to go through all of this? And they were like, stop. Your soul chose this. They knew you were strong enough to get through this. It was always your plan to break these generational ties, to remove these past lives, to get rid of this karmic, trauma that you've had. It was always a part of the plan. You were chosen for this. So if you stop looking at it as that this is something that was placed upon you and start realizing that this is a beautiful road that you've been given so that you could overcome it, so that you could come out on top, then things will be different for you. And it's like, it was that moment there where I was like, I've been so blessed. I've been blessed to actually have things be so difficult for me, because now where I'm at the place now where there's just this peace and love and happiness, this was worth every single bit of that. It was worth every amount of it. And the amount of gratitude that I have for having gone through what I went through, I can't even explain it. I can't put it into words, but it took my guides really shaking me out of that because I almost fell into a place of victim where that can be easy to do. But ultimately, every single thing was meant to get you to where you're supposed to be. I was always meant to be here, and I had to go through all of that to get here,
I really believe that with my entire being. What is your relationship with your guides like now after you cuss them out?
So they're so funny. I mean, I love them. They're amazing. And I connect a lot just with my highest self specifically. She's such a badass and I love her. But I connect with her, but I have my one guide, Anne Marie, she comes in a lot. It's so funny because I was working on one of my ebooks in the bathtub. I like to do a lot of work in the bathtub. I'm in total surrender mode there. If any of you need to get in your head or like connect with yourself, get in an Epsom salt bath. I'm telling you, you will just like totally melt in.
It's a daily practice, definitely.
Yeah. So I was sitting in there and this huge flash of light came at the right side. And then like, she was like speaking with me and they're just really funny with me all of the time. And I think because I'm a really funny, goofy person, it just makes total sense that they are also like that, but I'm connected with them all of the time. And I don't always even know where my guidance is coming from. And I used to like want to have like to put a label on it, who's guiding me or who's here or whatever it is. But now I just am in such a flow of surrender where it's like, it doesn't really matter. Where is it coming from? It doesn't matter. I'm receiving it and I'm not letting go of it. So now anytime I receive any intuitive download, instead of resisting it, which is what I did for the majority of my life, I'm 32, by the way, I totally surrender. If I don't take action on it right then, I make a note of it and action gets taken on it very soon, because I just know that information is coming to me to help me evolve and push forward. And so I allow it to happen.
I love that. I'm just curious, what type of plant medicine did you sit with?
Oh, I did mushrooms.
There's so many choices.
Yeah, I did it 5 times in the 30 days that I was there, which is kind of a lot, if I'm being honest. But I was in such surrender mode. Out of the 5 times, only one of them was dark. And that also had to do with, because that day already I had been slightly triggered in the morning. Triggers are such a big thing that I have been able to heal through, which is why I also made a guide and an ebook on triggers, because triggers are showing up in our life because they're mirroring what's happening within you. And so if you're triggered all the time, you need to work through that deeper emotional trauma that's on repeat within you. But I had been triggered in the morning. And then also a big thing with plant medicine is nature. And so that day it was gloomy and the waves were really heavy and like the energy wasn't great. And I'm so in touch with how the energy feels. Like my body is super sensitive. I'm super aware of all of that all of the time. And that day was my worst mushroom trip, but it was actually my best mushroom trip because I healed the most from it. But it was the only one where I had a lot of fear within it. All of the other ones were super, super beautiful and medicinal. And I actually got to the point where I have to create some more podcast episodes about on my own podcast, because there's so much information, but like I connected with Jesus. I actually could see the matrix in our world. Like I was so in connection with our universe and everything. It was just mushrooms. It might be my favorite thing I've ever done. I've never done ayahuasca. I really want to do ayahuasca. I am being called to do it, but we've been in a quarantine. So, that's also a thing here. So yeah. I'm thinking hopefully the next thing I will do, but I have also been feeling called to do more mushrooms. So I want to try and maybe I'll microdose. But the thing is about the Akashic Records is that you can't drink alcohol or do drugs within 24 hours. There's rules that are involved with reading the records. So I also I never really drink anyways. I'm not a drinker. And I don't do drugs. I don't smoke cigarettes. I'm high on life. If you can't tell, that's how I'm at right now. I'm high on nature. All I do is connect in nature and connect with myself. That's what I do in the entirety of my day, outside of reading the records for people and providing all this love and beautiful guidance. But I definitely want to do more plant medicine, because a lot of the other things that have been coming through in readings is, yes, connect with nature, but also when you're eating in a certain way, when you're eating nature, you are healing from nature from the outside. And when you are consuming nature, you are healing with nature from the inside. So a lot of fruits and vegetables and things that are grown in our earth were given to us to help us be our best. And so also, since I didn't get into this too much, but my eating that had evolved over the years, I grew up with a pretty much sad diet, a standard American diet, until I was 27, when I started making those changes based off of how my body was responding. And so then for about 4 years, I was like dairy-free pescatarian. So I ate fish and I ate eggs, but I didn't eat dairy or meat. And then I still was that way up until this past October, when I did that raw diet. And then I've been completely vegan since, with the exception of honey. Honey has been something that's been really medicinal for me. So I do still continue to do that. But I will say that also I feel like is a huge aspect of my spiritual connection as well. I'm hyper aware of that and my body's reaction to food, and also eating a whole foods plant-based diet and how it nourishes me to allow my cells to be vibrating at the highest level possible. Yeah. Even if I wanted to go back and eat meat, which at this point I don't think I ever could, just because of the amount of knowledge that I have. I am not an angry vegan. I want everybody to be as healthy as possible. I just want to provide tools for people to want to eat better. I do think that everyone should be eating a good amount of plant-based, just for the sake of health, our environment, agriculture, animals, all of that. But if you want to continue to consume animal products, it's totally okay. And everyone is on their own journey. And I don't want to preach at other people to do anything either. I want people to make their own choices and what feels right for them in their own bodies. Like, I ate a horrible diet for a long time. And if people would have came preaching at me then, I would have just hated them, and I never would have wanted to change at all. So I want everyone to be able to evolve on their own. But I will say that my diet and the connection with nature in that aspect is a huge part as well, where I'm at with that eating plant-based. And then again, it's a similar type of thing with plant medicine, where when you're consuming this plant medicine that Mother Earth has given us, it is that deeper connection with yourself, with Earth, with the world, with the universe. It's just everything. And so plant medicine is really, really powerful.
I have heard so many amazing and beautiful healing stories with different types of plant medicine. So I was curious on what your experience was. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
You offer so many different types of, you've gone across all of the things that you do, like you do Akashic readings and all of the detox and things like that. You do guided meditations. You do coaching. What is your favorite offering that you provide, and why? Because they're all things that you're very passionate about.
I am. I know. And things are just evolving so quickly with all of it. So I really like doing the readings, the Akashic Record readings. However, I just recently started doing these Divine Healing Soul Circles, which is like a group connection. And it allows me to help more people instead of just one-on-one, even though I'm not opening a record, your specific record. Like, I open the records for the group, and I lead us in a guided meditation, and I provide a really safe space for people to open up and speak about how they're feeling. So that has been something that's been really amazing. I added all of the ones that I'm going to be doing for the rest of the year onto my website. So all of the dates and stuff are put in and everything. So that's definitely been something I like. Anything that is evolved within the readings. I do like reading the Akashic Records, just because it heals them, but it heals me. Like, every reading is so different. It's so beautiful. And like, it enhances my spirituality. When I'm connecting with other people's energies and their guides, it's mind blowing and beautiful all in the same. It's just so phenomenal. And it's allowed me to surrender further, because when I'm in there are times when I may be bawling, or I may be, like experiencing past, like loved ones that have passed in their lives. And it's such a beautiful connection. And it's so intimate. I don't want to compare it to this, but when you have sex with somebody, especially when you're in a safe space, you're sharing beautiful energy with them, right? Like, sex is such an intimate, energetic connection. The problem with our society is that we've made sex this, whole other thing. But sex is such a very spiritual, energetic connection. And it's almost like that with the Akashic Records, because I am in their energy. We are sharing energy in that moment. There's not like an intimate, sexual thing. It's this energy, and it's so beautiful and divine. And every time is so different that it just is so beautiful for me. And knowing that I'm providing that gift and that clarity to them and helping them connect deeper with themselves. But all of my guides that I've made as well is information that I have received during Akashic Record readings that I created into guides to help other people in their life. So like, that's also kind of like a piggyback off of the guides, or off of the readings, just because it's all from readings. It's all from above. It's all from, so those are all great things.
What could someone gain from receiving an Akashic reading?
So pretty much just a deeper connection with yourself. clarity with what might be going on in your life. You can bring up specific stuff that might be happening and how your highest self or why it's happening. It get that clarity aspect of like, why are these things? Why have they continuously been coming up? Like, why has it been this way? And a lot of times things from past lives come up because things that we've experienced in past lives, we mirror in this life until we release that karmic tie and move through. So there's like two parts of our purpose here on earth. First part is we need to release these karmic ties that we've carried with us from past lives, because part of our soul's journey, why they chose us, is to allow us to release those. And a lot of that is those lower vibrational energies where it could be fear, shame, unworthiness, all of that stuff. And so the same type of things that we may have experienced in this lifetime, it's a mirror to what you've experienced in past lives and why you need to release that. But then on the flip side of that, there's such a polarity where it's like the listening and the connection to our highest self and the information that's coming through for how we can open up those new portals to step into that place of power and alignment and fulfillment in our lives. So it's the two things. It's the shedding of those lower vibrational energies, those past lives, those karmic ties, while simultaneously stepping into your power and receiving that information to stand in your power. So it's two types of healing that comes through usually during the reading. It's how can I get rid of this, or what are the things that I need to be doing to move forward? And if people are pretty out of alignment, then the information that comes through might be something that they totally know that it's there. They usually know that it's there, but they've resisted it probably the same way that I had resisted my whole life, and they haven't acknowledged it. And now they're hearing somebody else tell it to them, but I'm not telling them. I'm just the vessel of their own information that's being regurgitated back to them. I'm not actually the one who's saying it to them, but they're hearing it out of my words, but it's their own information that's actually in their head because I'm in their energy.
You're validating what they're already experiencing.
Exactly. And then
other people before we'll listen to our own intuition, which
exactly.
Yeah.
And so usually after a lot of my readings, they're like, this just clarifies so much. It gives me so much validation. I know what I need to be doing moving forward. I have active steps, because usually when you receive like, this is what's happening in your life, the pinnacle or, the Pleiadians, because that's where the Akashic records are homed. They're in the Pleiades. They will give you a tool. Like, what can you do to help yourself fix this? Because ultimately that tool is what's going to help you evolve and shift you back into this place of alignment and clarity and fulfillment in your life. And then the more that you're in touch with your intuition and you're listening to all those intuitive downloads that are coming through, they say this all the time. They're like, each intuitive download is like a brick. And if you do nothing with these bricks, then you just have a pile of bricks on the side. But if you take action on each brick, you slowly start building this wall. And then ultimately at the end, you have this beautiful dream home that just all of a sudden shows up. But it didn't show up out of anywhere. It was these small bricks that you started building on your own, allowing yourself to move forward in your life. And the more that we trust that and not resist it, the more that we are in connection with ourselves and in alignment with ourselves.
What a great analogy. Really, when you put it into perspective like that, it changes I feel like it changes the vibration, so you can easy. I can't even talk tonight. Understand it better, the whole experience easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just that clarity that people receive, and everybody's different. I mean, every single person's energy, every single person's past lives are different. Many people have very deep generational trauma that's been passed down through so many lineages that's really shaping their life now. And the reading provides you that clarity and comfort to know how you can shift and move forward. And it's amazing. And I'm so grateful. I've read for men. I've read for women. I've read for all ages. I read for a girl the other day. She was 18. And then later that night, I read for a 60-year-old woman. And it's so beautiful because the energy is the same. Like, the age part of it doesn't mean anything, because we put age on stuff. But when it's just energy, it's so beautiful because it just is irrelevant, and there's times the things come up that, like, things that we think are really important during our life right now in this physical 3D world, that's so irrelevant within the spiritual world and with the energetic, because they're like, this, it doesn't mean anything. You have all this weight on this thing, but it actually doesn't mean anything, you know? And it puts so much into perspective. And I learned so much about myself just through reading for others. And it's really beautiful. It really is.
Well, I think that's part of our experience also, not just when you're giving someone a reading. It could be in a conversation or in a book or whatever that looks like. Whatever we're giving to someone, there's always a little nugget we get to keep for ourselves, for our own personal development and growth.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what's so beautiful about that exchange, is that it is for all involved.
Yeah. And yeah, it's such connecting into spirituality and that deeper connection with other people and that understanding. There's just such a huge, such a selfless, just beautiful, I don't even know how to explain it. Like,
some things you just can't put into words.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful. Like, through this process of where I'm at in my life, it's just everything has fallen into place, and I don't take any of it for granted ever. I do not. And providing that type of comfort and clarity, which has always been a part of who I am. But now I have the way that I was always meant to have, where I am able to really help people on an extra deeper level. And I can't tell you that nothing feels more fulfilling than that. I will say, though, I still am very creative. And you know, I started where I've been making these organic candles and bath salts because I wanted to find a way that totally aligned with who I am to provide things in a creative way, which also makes me happy to make, but also, you know, me and my team, but also to fulfill that creative aspect. And it's like, I felt so out of place when I worked like at Ralph Lauren and these other design companies, where I was being forced to create this stuff that just did not align with who I am. And it felt so wrong with and forcing again. But now that I've created these other things, like in this aspect with creativity and, you know, using my hands and stuff, it's like I have things that I'm so proud of, and there's such a deep connection, and it's infused with so much energy and positivity and you know, organic and all that stuff. And so it's like that also, there's just so many levels to everything that I offer where I feel like so connected with. There's a couple things on my site that maybe seem like out of place, which is where I have like parasite cleansing guides and like coffee enemas. And I don't want to not have that, because I spent so long researching and learning and utilizing all of those to also help heal my gut. I mean, I'm so proud to say that I have zero anxiety and depression anymore. This is what I feel like is because of two things: the connection with my spirituality and me being back in a place of alignment where I am not forcing myself any longer. But through the process of parasite cleansing, I have healed my gut, which is the most important thing. Our guts control everything. And I also, like, as I have still, because I still do a lot of it to this day, as I have still continued to heal my gut, the spiritual downloads are coming through like, wow, as you're purging this, these things being purged from you, again, these toxins are extra more layers. Like, it keeps going deeper, of purging more layers. And what's scary is that like 85% of people have parasites, and you get them from anywhere. And they control your mind. They control your emotions. They control so many parts of us. And anyone who has any type of gut issue, you definitely have parasites. Most people have them. They don't even realize them. Most people who die and they do, scans on their bodies, they already have worms in their bodies, because when they died, they already were in there. They don't just get in there. And so it's like, that's still a process where I feel this spiritual connection with it as well, because that purging of these outside entities that are controlling us internally, releasing those out, again, is allowing you to connect on a deeper level with yourself. And I know it sounds like a really wild and out there thing, but it's not. And like, if you just think about the fact that we deworm our dogs twice a year, but humans never deworm themselves, like, humans have more worms in them than any animal that's out there. So that's something that's odd, but I'm still very passionate about as well.
No, it is. When you think about it, it's really actually pretty scary. But in the whole big scheme of things, healing, like everything that you've said makes complete and total sense,
Yeah.
especially with the type of foods and the environment that we live in these days. It's
100%.
just crazy. I want to make sure everyone knows how to reach you and where to find you. So why don't you share all of that information with our listeners tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website has everything on it. It's Kirby, KIRBYBE.com. And then on Instagram, I'm on there all the time, KIRBY_BE. I'm on my TikTok a lot too, which you can get to through my Instagram. I have all of that like in my links there. But anything that you want or anything that you want to really connect with or see any of my guides or book a reading or join on any of my soul circles that I'm hosting on the weekends, or I have guided meditations as well that I offer on my site. Like all of that you can get on my website, and you can connect with me on any of my socials there as well. I also have a podcast. You can connect with it on there too. There's a ton of stuff on my website, which is probably the best bet for you to go to first.
Oh, we have another minute or so. Well, we have longer than that, but I have some things to say. But I want everyone to listen to your podcast. Can they find that also on your website?
Yep, there's a tab that's definitely for podcasts. It's called Unapologetic Me, and
how appropriate.
Yes, it's totally. I love it so much because, as you guys can see, I don't shut up ever. So I had to make a podcast because I just could talk for days.
What kind of things do you share on your podcast?
I talk about health, wellness, spirituality. A lot of it is just one-on-one, just solo episodes of me sharing experiences from my life about topics, even just me, how I've navigated like this eclipse season. I'm really open, raw, and personal on there. And that's how I want it to be. And at first I had a lot of fear around that because I was like, maybe I have to be interviewing people all the time, but I have some interviewing that is being done, but a lot of it is just me, and that's what it's meant to be about. And so I share a ton of information, a ton of my own stories, a ton of healing, just anything that I feel called to. I don't ever pre-plan anything. I trust my intuition. They tell me what to do. I listen, I surrender, and I record an episode.
I love that. It's so authentic, just like this show.
Yeah.
I was sitting here thinking while you're talking, I'm really enjoying spending the time with you and hearing about your experiences and all the gifts that you have to share, and how the time has just flown by as it always does on my show. But I have said maybe 20 words, 50 words. I don't know. Not very many, but
I know.
No, it's good. I'm not complaining at all. It's just, when I said that the show is about my guests, I really like them to share who they are so we can connect with you on a personal level. And you have done that. You have really opened up and authentically shared with us your experiences, even though some of them are very challenging to share. And I just really appreciate and admire you for doing so.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for you. I want you all to know that obviously I had a good chunk of time to speak about all of this here, but I'm the same way on my Instagram. I'm the same way on TikTok. I'm the same way showing up because I realized that through me being open and sharing, like I have so many highlights on my Instagram from last year that you could go back and watch where I'm bawling. I'm talking about depression. I am so open about all of it because me not speaking about it is not helping anybody. I realized how alone I was through what I was going through. And once I finally started opening up about it, I realized how many other people needed that same type of support as well. And so it's part of my gift to really not care, which sounds bad, but really just be open. And I'm very open with everything in my life. I'm open with my boundaries with my family. I spoke with you about, stuff with my father. I'm open about that all of the time because there's no point for me to hold it within, and it's only going to help other people as long as I'm willing to share it.
I agree. And it's beautiful that you allowed the surrender so that this could happen. I appreciate you so much, Kirby. Thank you very, very much for spending so much time with us and being so open. Again, you guys make sure that you go to her website. One more time, Kirby.
It's just www.KirbyBe.com.
Awesome. Any last words?
I just am so grateful for all of you, and my heart has just been bursting being able to connect with all of you and provide you so much love and support. And I hope that I can continue to serve you in the future, which is who I am and a part of my purpose here on earth.
Yay. I love that you know that now. Thank you for sharing your light. You guys, I'm so glad I just hopped onto TikTok and found this beautiful goddess. What a gift. Last week, we had the opportunity to wander with one of my business partners for Vibes, Mind, Body, Spirit. And we talked about all of these wonderful, amazing spiritual tools that we have in our shop. And our website is brand new, Vibes Now, VIBEZNOW.com. It's still in its several phases of changing. We are going to get the shop going up. I'm just sharing all of this with you because I keep getting emails about it. The shop will be live. I don't know when. That's a work in progress, definitely. But in the meantime, we said and shared that we will be having our online sale once again on Facebook. So Facebook Live. And we're going to have our next one tomorrow, Thursday, July 9th at 4:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. When we have these online sales, they're really great because we give different offerings than we do in our shop. So there are specials and things that we haven't even brought out into the shop yet. So make sure you guys tune in live for our next online sale. The support is super appreciated. And thanks for listening. This has been a wonderful show. I've actually got to sit back and have a really great story time along with you. For more information on the show, make sure you guys visit soulwanderings.com as well as kgraradio.com. And I would love and appreciate you sharing the show with your friends and family. I encourage you all to continue to have these conversations that we have here every week and bring the awareness and growth into your experiences. And as always, I love to hear about those experiences from the show and life in general. So email me. It's the best when I hear from my wanderers. Connect@soulwanderings.com. Thanks again, everyone, for being here with us tonight, and have a beautiful evening. Good night.